keynote, which is going to be on the topic Building Blocks of Next Gen Blockchain. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, may I request Mr. Hari Krishnan M, Head of Technology, Rubik's Network, to kindly join us, and he will introduce us to the building blocks of next generation blockchain, setting the stage for a future where technology and innovation converge to create sustainable solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Hari Krishnan M, Head of Technology, Rubik's Network.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. It's lovely to be here, my first time here at GIFT City. I don't see a better reason than GBS 2024 to be here. So, as mentioned, I'm Hari. I am the Head of Technology at Rubik's. I'm a cryptographer by skill. And we at Rubik's is an L1 blockchain with tokenized, which is a public tokenized blockchain made to bring the next 1 billion nodes and the 1 million apps on chain. We're also a zero gas fee network with unlimited scalability possible. Also proudly, we're made in India and made for blockchain. So today I'll be talking about how Rubik's is building in order to bring mainstream adoption in the network. So can you have the please? Explaining what we're basically building. So a lot of our panelists talk about how scalability is an issue, how privacy is an issue in blockchain. So with my background in cryptography, I've built L2 protocols, L1 protocols before. Kind of found out that with this monolithic architecture, we're not really able to scale or not bring real world adoption to blockchain. So I'm building Rubik's blockchain in order to achieve this issues of scalability and as well as bring real world adoption. We have 3 or 4 main points, which is about how Rubik's blockchain is different from a monolithic blockchain with its parallel chain architecture. And this is how, when we are comparing to a typical web architecture, how the Rubik's acts like a microservice where you can scale up your services, for example, on demand. Secondly, Rubik's is very developer friendly, which means that our smart contracts are built on existing web languages. So you don't need to have your developer trained again. You can use a lot of your written code bases in order to build the platform. Third thing is about, we spoke about the cost of running the operations, how Rubik's solves that problem. So anybody who's trying to compare between a public blockchain and private blockchain, trying to build a solution, what usually happens is they end up picking private blockchains because the cost of running the operation in public blockchains is very unpredictable. So Rubik's, we have a fixed infra, so you mean that when you have to run your operations for the next 6 months or 12 months, you know how much it's going to take to run the application. Finally, also, I guess a lot of us were talking about data sovereignty and how regulatory has to be involved as well. So Rubik's works very focused on that. So my background is also on privacy preserving technologies. With Rubik's, what you essentially have is the user will have the whole control over how your data is created, consumed, and also controlled in the network. So these are some of the key areas I want to discuss today. Hopefully we have the deck ready by now. These are bytes of data on the internet today. The thing is not even 1 trillionth of that is in the blockchain. And it's not because the internet has been there since the 90s, the blockchain is very recent. In fact, half of this data was created in the last decade. So what is the problem? So I call this the Suez Canal problem, especially if you look at data as the new oil. And imagine having trillions of gallons of oil that you want to transfer to this mini Suez Canal, which is the monolithic blockchain. In this case, even if you have so many chips, which in this case is hardware, you're still not able to transfer all the data together. But we have this problem in the traditional web as well. And one example I would like to take is that we usually see in a lot of blockchain conferences is how Visa has 20 million TPS compared to Bitcoin's 70 million. Visa never used to have 20 million, especially never when it used to have a monolithic database. Now the web has evolved into a microservices architecture where you're regionalizing and categorizing your services. And that's how we're able to scale up into the 20 million TPS. They can even scale up to 30 million, 40 million if they want. Another example regionally is how IPL streams are going on, right? Whenever there's a final happening, it's auto-scaling into the view. So this on-demand ramping up, on-demand increasing of service speed is very important in the current data-driven world. So what Rubix does with its token chain parallel architecture is that we're bringing the microservice architecture into the Web3 world, which is what the current data-driven industry needs. So that's really how Rubix is able to achieve the scalability that only a private blockchain these days can do in a public chain network itself. That brings me very nicely to my second point. So a lot of us are here from industry talking about how we can make industry adoption of blockchain. But as I said, the first problem that we have is the comparison between how a private blockchain and a public blockchain works, and which blockchain to choose, as somebody asked the question, right? So the question really ends up with the point that, okay, you can't estimate the cost in a public blockchain because it's public and it's monolithic, and based on the transaction, the traffic that's there, your gas cost and everything will be different. And that's why people take a private blockchains, because they know a fixed cost of running the operations. It's very important for any product that you're trying to ship in an enterprise. Rubix, with its subnet architecture, which allows you to have a fixed infra cost with zero gas fee, makes this possible in a public network. And very importantly, Rubix is agnostic to data traffic from other applications. This means that imagine having two applications run, one with your application run, let's say there is an Amazon version of, a decentralized version of Amazon being run, right? Suddenly during a Diwali time, there's a lot of traffic coming into this Amazon network. You don't want your application to be stuck because of this. That's why it's very important that your dApp and the other dApp running is agnostic, have traffic agnostic. With the subnet architecture that Rubix have, your dApps will be able to scale based on how much hardware you have, just like how you do it in a current cloud system. So our whole purpose is really not to reinvent the wheel, but to make sure that our blockchain solution fits into how the real web works, how the real technology and how other software is. So we're just trying to fit in our component rather than trying to shoehorn an existing blockchain into the current tech stack that's there. Finally, on the other side, I spoke about your traffic not getting affected. It's also important that if you're running an Amazon and you suddenly want to increase your TPS, you're able to ramp it up just like how you do it in a cloud with auto scale. So with Rubix, if you invest a little bit more infra with VMs or your own nodes, you're able to do that as well. Also, we're all here today to support the initiative and focus on building a sustainable tomorrow. Rubix is a very lightweight protocol with no proof of work involved. Also, very importantly, it's a peer-to-peer network, which means that it's a perfect fit for your edge computing solutions, which are known to have its support and better for scalability solutions. So this is one of the key reasons for Rubix provides a better infra, not just a green infra, but also a better infra and a fixed infra cost for you to run your applications. Alright, so we understood about the scalability, we understood about the infra issues. Now, are we ready to go? Probably yes. But the next part is about the developer community that we have, because it's ultimately, end of the day, a software that we have to build. Right? So what's the issue now is we've heard this jargons about smart contract, the difficulty in auditing smart contracts, and nobody really understanding what a smart contract is. It's a bit of a funny coined term because we already have something similar in the web space, because it's just, in my words, it's distributed computing, that is smart contracts. You have a business logic which used to have the current web architecture, but now there's no server. So you're just trying to replicate the execution in multiple systems. Obviously, the system has to be sandboxed and the computation is deterministic, but you don't really need to reinvent something with EVMs and solidity. So Rubix smart contracts are built on existing web languages or existing server-side languages, because we are basically trying to replicate a server here. So you could write your code in Golang, you could write your code in Rust and deploy it in Rubyx. This means that developers don't have to reinvent. You could use a lot of your code base which you already have in your application, which means that your Web 2 to Web 3 journey becomes much more easy. Also, obviously, with these Web 2 languages being the libraries are much more secure. Auditing teams would say that we already have a lot of great auditing tools for these Web 2 softwares, which makes it much easier to audit as well. Finally, this will all lead to faster shipping, and therefore another million apps that we are visioning to happen in Rubyx will be much built faster. Now, a topic very close to me and my interest is about data sovereignty and how we need to protect the data. We have DPDP acts and GDPR acts that somebody spoke about, that the user should have a control over deleting the data, not just deleting the data, but how the data is consumed in the market. If you put a data there, and even if you're deleting it, you already have a snapshot of it. So you can't prevent somebody from taking a snapshot of the data if it's already there. Maybe they deleted the data, but the snapshot is already there permanent in the network. So what Rubyx does is it provides full sovereignty over data, which means that you have ability to completely create, control, and consume how your data is used. Consumption is very important because it is basically a business logic and how your data is monetized in the network. So Rubyx does this because it's a lightweight protocol and it runs on your mobiles, it can be run on your laptops, which means that the true endpoint of the user is where the whole data is being created and stored as well. Finally, I saw that one for speakers is Mr. Sandeep Shukla. I remember his post a few months ago where he talked about the centralization and decentralized ledgers, I would say, were around Ethereum have around 10 validators in the network for maintaining the network basically, and Bitcoin have similar numbers. So one might ask, is it truly decentralized because it's validated by quite a few nodes? The good thing about Rubyx is that you don't need to have large infra, you don't need to have a lot of ETH, or you don't need to have a lot of RBT tokens at stake. With a light node, with limited amount of RBTs, you could be a validator in the network, earn the credits. And it is this principle of Rubyx that makes it truly decentralized and democratic. I guess there's no better word to it than democracy being the place that we are on today. So I request you all to join the Rubyx community and help us build the application. I can take any questions. Well, the processing time is around 5 seconds, but it also depends upon the RTT, right? I mean, if your system is in the largest case, it's just an RTT. So 5 seconds minimum to do your transaction and you reach instant finality.
You are talking about the enterprise use cases. No one is going to wait for seconds to process the transaction. They need immediately, like it is happening in the centralized network, right?
Right.
They need that kind of speed for the transaction processing specific.
Correct.
How are you going to manage?
Correct. So what I spoke about was the main network where the validators around globally is placed. But if you are doing a subnet operation with the nodes in your network, the RTT is pretty low, which means it's basically verifying your signatures. That's all it takes, which means it's less than even a second.
Let me give you an example, simple example of when we do the web meetings, okay? Virtual meetings, either on the Google Meet or on anything. It's a real time data transmission across the globe. Now, how do you see that the blockchain technology can adopt such kind of innovation in that direction to make the transaction processing within the milliseconds? Is this possible?
I think not right now, so what we're doing a couple of...
Then meet here. I show you.
Zero gas fees, so no proof of work, then how the validation of what consensus mechanism is being used here?
Right, so if you look at Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin never had really any gas fee to start off with. It's that transaction fee that you had to give because you had to pay basically a ransom to get your network get your transaction up to the speed. We use something similar to proof of stake, but it's proof of stake is a mono chain, which means that only one person who's staking it gets into the chain. So with our parallel chain concept, what you essentially have is anybody who has enough RBT tokens to validate, because it's all parallel chains. So if you're doing a 1 RBT transfer, anybody with enough 1 RBT or 1/5 of that, which means 0.2 RBTs, can be a validator in the network, because you're staking only for that particular state change. This is how we're able to do it. And you earn certain credits with the miners. So it's because of this parallel chain that you don't have to give any gas fees.
Thank you.
First of all, thanks for that one. So there's an edit that I would like to make on that particular slide where you said Visa is running at 20 mil TPS versus Bitcoin at 7 TPS, right? Visa is at 1700 TPS, 1700 TPS, that's it. So that accounts to close to 170 billion transactions per second. That's more than 1700 TPS is what Visa is in reality. The other one you mentioned that you people are planning to onboard at least a billion node validators, right?
You don't have to be a validator, you just need to be a node in the network. So we're just making it very easy for to run nodes, because again you can set up your node in your mobile. It's one of the key ways to get enrolled. A lot of people would come on board if you can have a full node in your network. And it's not really a cryptocurrency per se. Any application that you want to build on Rubik's, you just put the Rubik's SDK, mobile SDK into your wallet, you integrate it, then you create an identifier, you're on board.
So how exactly you are planning to incentivize this validator? A billion validator is seriously a very big number.
Correct. So we have an incentive model similar to earning mining tokens, for example, if that's common what we use. So there are certain credits earned for being a validator in the network, which you can redeem to create the new tokens in the network. So that's a reward for them. Rather than the transaction fee itself, they're getting certain credits to use into mine a new token, just like how it works in Bitcoin.
But don't you think that 1 billion as a number is a very elevated number? Just try to see from this point that say the very first validator mined the block, and then the 1 billion validator will take years and years to come back to the network, isn't it?
No, so it's not 1 billion validators, it's 1 billion nodes. You can be a validator, you can be just a node running there. So 1 billion nodes, even if they're not validator, they still hold the data with them. So they do not validate the transaction, they are parallel chains. So if they want to hold your data, let's say we have 2 billion people here, right? So if they want to hold the data with them, they can create a node and their data is fully sovereign with them. So I'm not talking about 1 billion validators, I'm talking about 1 billion nodes in the network, because they can hold their own data with them.
May I now request?
There's no transaction. So yes.
Is how, okay, if I am a validator in your network, how I am going to pay the infrastructure cost? Like if I use Azure and I am holding 100%, I am a validator, right? So how I am going to pay? Because you are going to give reward to me, but reward has to be converted, and you should earn that revenue first. If you are zero gas fees or zero transaction fees for storing the data, then who is paying that amount? It's simple, right? If I am running a validator node and I am on Azure, okay, so there is a two things, one is server and another, and then the storage. Storage keep increasing. So I have to pay to the Azure, right? Either $1,000, $2,000, whatever is the number. How you are going to pay me to pay that?
Okay, so as I mentioned, right? So when you verify a transaction, you're getting certain credits which can be used to mine an RBT token, let's say, right? Which is the ROI in this case, because you are using, for example, in Bitcoin's case, is familiar to us. The value for miners is not just about the transaction fee, but because they're mining a token, mining Bitcoin here. Similar way, for you, it's much easier to get an RBT token. So we have some maths around how you can manage how your ROI is in terms of, if you are a validator in, let's say, 10 RBTs with you, how much time it will take for you to get the investment. We have the math ready, which we could discuss later. value going down in the market.
May I request this to be the last question, please, because we are running out of time, please.
Correct. I think for me, the true value of the network really comes from adoption. So there's a lot of adoption happening in the network, then the value will sustain rather than just somebody dumping it.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Now may I request Mr. Sunil Kapadia to kindly come on stage and felicitate our keynote speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please put your hands together for this felicitation ceremony and let's honor our keynote speaker. Well, founders like these actually bring our country in the billion-dollar unicorn club. So let us hope we create more and more unicorns out of all these founders who are coming with technologies that transform lives. Thank you very much once more.